Hi, I'm Billy Gwaltney, and this is the CYA Podcast. This show is for the physician who understands the importance of protecting everything you've worked so hard to achieve. Each week, I'll bring you tips and advice to help you cut through the clutter and misinformation and show you exactly what you need to preserve your income and way of life. If you're ready to achieve the peace of mind that only financial security can bring, let's get started. Welcome to today's episode of the Cover Your Assets podcast. This is Billy Gwaltney, your host, and as always, I'm happy to be with you. Today's topic is, what if I do a lot of procedures and also do a lot of clinic? This is a question I get from physicians who are looking to purchase specialty on occupation disability coverage, often in certain specialties like ophthalmology, dermatology, gastroenterology, and urology. There could be a few others that I'm missing. But those specialties where it's possible to do significant numbers or percentage of procedures, sometimes in the office, not in a hospital setting, and then also doing a lot of clinic around those procedures. And what does it mean to be disabled, totally disabled? And this is an excellent question. The true specialty on occupation definition of disability means two things. One, it means that if an illness or injury prevents you from performing the material duties of your specific occupation, then you are totally disabled. Okay. And two, it means that if you then engage in another occupation, you can do so and earn an unlimited income, and it would not impact your disability benefit. Okay, that's a very important definition to have. And so the question becomes, okay, what happens if I am a cornea specialist and I do procedures, but I also do a lot of clinic with patients who are not going to need procedures? And let's say I can't do procedures, but I can still do clinic. Am I disabled? And that's, am I totally disabled or partially disabled? The good news is that if a properly designed insurance contract, private policy is going to have an enhanced residual benefit also, which is for partial disability. So it's not all or nothing. That's important as kind of just to make sure that you have that in case it is a partial claim. It's not like if you're not totally disabled, you don't get anything. So it's vital to have that enhanced residual benefit. But in terms of being totally disabled, it comes down to your particular situation. At time of claim, an insurance claims person or their claims team will interview you, talk to you, ask you about a typical day. How do you spend your time? What do you do from morning until evening, all the way through? Then they're going to talk with your employer, and then they're going to verify through the CPT codes that patients file or that filed for patients. And those are your duties, okay? And it could be obviously possible that a lot of those duties could be there could be some procedural duties and then clinical duties. And so if you can't do the procedures, the question that's going to be asked is essentially, would this employer have you there if you could not do procedures? That's going to be one question. Just kind of, does the person that's in your spot, in your role, need to be able to do procedures? Then if so, then that obviously makes procedures a driving factor for your practice. I did another podcast a little while ago with the senior VP of claims for Emeritus, which is one of the top contracts. And I would highly recommend you listen to that, because in that, he went through a claim for a surgical ophthalmologist that they were adjudicating at the time. They were going through that process. And he made an interesting point that I think is very applicable for this question, which is, if that surgical ophthalmologist could not do surgery but could do clinic, we would see that clinic as being separate from an occupational standpoint, because that marketplace, that city, that town knows him as a proceduralist. And so any clinic that he does is driven by his marketplace spot, what he's known in the marketplace as being a procedural ophthalmologist. If he's no longer a procedural ophthalmologist, then he's in essence starting over as a non-procedural ophthalmologist. And so his clinic is going to be made up of different patients, likely. And so we would see that as a separate occupation. He can't do procedures. He can still do clinic. That's a different occupation because it really wouldn't be related to the patients he would see as a proceduralist. It was fascinating. It was very clear how he described that. A lot of our clients that are in this category, like I said, ophthalmologists, dermatologists, gastroenterologists, urologists, where there can be a lot of procedures and a lot of clinic, they do like that kind of explanation. A lot of them do end up picking Emeritus for that kind of clarity. And it's not that the other three companies would not treat it the same way. They likely would. But they haven't come on a podcast and talked about it like they did. So Emeritus is just very transparent with how they process their claims, and they'll tell you that up front. Some of the other companies, they won't talk about hypotheticals. Their legal department won't let them, I guess. And so you're left to kind of read the contract and then make that determination for yourself. Guardian does go into a lot of detail in their true specialty on occupation definition of disability, talking about if you do 50% or more procedures and if you're on direct patient care and that kind of thing. But then it comes to, what do they mean by 50%? Do they mean 50% literally standing over a patient and operating, or do they mean 50% of the time involved in all those actual duties related to getting ready for operation for procedures? And so the devil's in the details. I will say at the bottom line is if you're looking at the top contracts and you're working with a broker that's made sure you get the best definitions, and you're looking currently as of the time of this podcast in spring of 2022 with Emeritus, Mass Mutual, Guardian, or Principal, you're going to be well cared for. Okay. They're really, really good. But I would encourage you to listen to that podcast with the Emeritus claims executive, because I think it would provide clarity on that, because you definitely want to make sure you're given the benefit of the doubt that if you're doing a lot of procedures, that is very likely driving the clinic. And if that's the case and you can't do procedures, but you could still do clinic, that should be a separate occupation because you're starting over. Okay. And so that is an important thing to do your best to find out. I would love to talk in more detail with your specific situation in mind. Happy to do that. Please feel free to text me anytime to arrange a conversation. My number is 704-270-2376. Again, that's 704-270-2376. Be happy to talk with you. Until we meet again, this is Billy Gwaltney. Thank you as always for your time.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.